Good morning. It's the 3rd of June 2025. Now, there are a lot of people starting off jobs in shops, like farm centres, like garages, and all that. And I find that, and there's a lot of women now getting those jobs, and they seem to work there, and they seem to be getting on great. It's a new departure, but the problem with them, they're not given any education, and they're not ever going to be. If I could only get a day lecturing to them on engineering, they'd end up a lot better off. But this, what I'm saying here, might be absorbed by one young person, and at least for those, 99 will say he's an collegiate, forget about him, and that's it. That's the way it is. We're living in an acquiring idiocracy. Nobody wants to know anything, but there will be always the one, and they're the ones that might thank me at some stage in the future. Now, we're going to deal with screw threads. Screw threads, they're a wedge principle, essentially. They're a circular wedge. Now, the first one you have to remember is that when they were making threads in olden times, they did it with a chisel. And there's a lathe, I think it was made by John Morsley. It's in the Natural History Museum in London. Well worth looking at. It's about 2'4" long, and it has two where he chiseled out the bed with a chisel because he had no way of making a bed. And it's a screw cutter. It'll cut threads using a lead screw to cut it, and it's there to be seen. Well, look, I might be able to post a video on it, but anyway, we're here to deal with threads now. Anyway, the first thing to remember is the first thread we deal with is the British ones, and we deal here with Whitworth, Joseph Whitworth. Now, Joseph Whitworth put out this first thread, and it was a 55-degree thread. 55-degree thread, and I see Whit written on this. These are, I often bought a big job lot of them in Cloghermart or somewhere else, and I see 5/8 Whit, and there's a 5/8 Whit. See it there. 5/8 Whit. You see, so it's designated by the diameter of the top of the thread, and then the head's width. And there's another 5/8 width, and as far as I can see, they fit exactly under. So I mean, I might buy a bucket. Man, so I'd say, what do you take for them? I'll take €5, £5 or something, and I'd land home with them. I might never use them, but you never know when they come in. So these are 5/8. Now remember, there is British standard width. There is no British standard fine. There's no, sorry, I keep making mistakes. There's British standard width. There is British standard fine, but there is no British standard course. Do you get my point? There's no BSc, because they left the name Whitworth with the thread. Didn't take it away. A good thing too. So BSW is the coarse British thread, 55-degree angle, and BSF is the fine version of it. And both are designated by the outward diameter of the thread and the outward diameter of the thread and the angle of the thread and the TPI, the number of teeth per inch for British threads. BSW and BSF. So if you're buying BSF, you don't have to count the threads. If it's BSF, it'll be British Standard Fine. It'll have a certain amount of threads, and the threads are designated according to the diameter. So a very fine, small bolt would have a finer thread than a bigger bolt. BSF, BSW. Okay? The next thing we move on to is BSP, British Standard Pipe. There's a certain thread for pipes. And you know those steel tubing for electricity containers and all of that? That's BSP. That's BSP, British Standard Pipe. Again, it's designated by the thread per inch, the top of the thread and the angle of the thread. So just be aware of it, BSP. Whereas, so there's three now for you. BS width, BS fine, and BS pipe, BSP. I mean that? So once you know the three are different, or if you're buying a tap, I don't use BSP much, but sometimes you have to. If you're joining certain things, I'm on a project at the moment, I might have to use it. Now you have that, folks, you have that. These threads are a type of obsolete in a way. They're a sort of obsolete. Now, but still, they can come up. Now the next thing, what's this here? Now I've shown you BSW. Finer one is just a finer version. Now, the next thing we move on to is BA, British Association. For clockwork, horology, is that what you call it? It comes from the word horology. For clockwork, for model engineering, for minor things, restoring gramophones and all of that made in Britain, the BA tread, or the British Association tread, was brought out. Now, it's on a number basis. Now, I had one here. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I never saw above 7, I have to say. Saw 5 and 6 all right. Now, the knot is the biggest thread. The knot is about, I haven't one here, but it's a little less than 1/4 of an inch. It's about a 6 mil, let's say. Now, if you're buying taps and dies, make sure that the designation is on them, because it's a pain trying to find out what you have, because a couple of years down the road, you'll not remember what that's about. So put a bit of a label, a bit of a sticky label like that, and put it on. So this is 2BA, 2BA. See it there? It's about 4 mil, 4.2 mil. Not exactly. Now, there's an actual standard for these. So BA knot is the biggest. It's about 0.22, I suppose. 2.1 maybe. And then they get smaller as they go up to 5, 6, 7. Clockmaking, perhaps watchmaking, and very fine things like that. These threads are brought out to cater for that market, and they're very hard to get. And you get taps and dies. BA, British Association. I think the thread is 60 degrees on these. These differ, doesn't really matter much, but they're a metric desert. The distance between them is calculated by a complicated metric system, because the metric system and the imperial system is the same. The imperial inch is 25.4, and that was set to be in line with the metric system. So now we've dealt with all things British, I think. Yeah, I think we have. Now, the next thing we deal with is unified. Unified. American Association, or there's a whole Society of Automobile Engineers and all of that, automobile engineers, and they have American Unified. Unified means they put them all common, and they're basically to UNC and UN Fine, same as British. Now, there may be certain threads smaller in between. So Unified, UNC, and UN Course. UNC is UN Course, UN Fine. Now, they are also designated on the teeth per inch. The thread is 60 degrees, and it has certain topping off, curving off the top. So the thread, the UNC and UNF is designated by the diameter of the thread and the teeth per inch, and they vary according to the diameter. Are you with me there? So they're unified. Union, Yankee, as we call them. Now, we're dealing here with common ones. But an awful lot of agricultural machinery is unified, is American thread. An awful lot of them. Because that's the way it developed. You know, it's like in America, you drive on the wrong side of the road. You know what I mean? Anyway, the next thing we go on for now is the metric system. International system. I think it's ISO, it's called. And it's based on a meter rule in the Louvre in Paris, and it's kept at 20 degrees centigrade, and the whole world uses it. It's the basic. It's even the basic for the imperial system, and accepted in America, even though they use the imperial system. Now, you might say, why is there so many, is there imperial and metric? Well, it does give you a choice. You have a better choice. You mean they have to make more drill bits and reamers and all to that. Now, I have some of them here. Let's see what's here. I think this is a 10. Yeah, 10 by 1.5. So essentially, you have metric coarse and metric fine. But they designate them not by the teeth per inch, but by the distance between the threads. So you'll not have to wonder too much about metric fine. This is an English M10 by 1.5. And then there's an M10 by 1.25, and there's an M10 by 1. So you need to know what it is, and of course for that, a useful little bit of kit. Not a bad thing for a person working in these outlets to have is a metric one of these. You'll hardly carry 3 of them, But this is a tread pitch gauge. And it's a metric, 60 degrees is written on it. I don't know, can you see it there? They're a nice little thing to have. Like, you know, they're a wee bit heavy if you have 3 of them. You don't need a BA1. I have a BA1. Do you need a BSF? A British standard? You see, there's different treads. Well, it'd be nice to have it. You could have the unified, the Yankee one. The Yankee one, maybe. But anyway, this is the most common. In fact, you know, we're all going to metric. I have to admit, nearly. The metric, you know, it's a grand tread to use. So if you see here, this is your tread pitch gauge. And you pick out, you check the different ones. And then you, see that? I'm trying to make sure you see that plane. Do you see that there? See it? It's hard to get on the camera, you know, like, but see it there. Now, when I get against the wall, so it fits precisely. Fits precisely. I can see it there. It's dead on. So you know exactly what it is. So it would be cool if you're working in a place and have a little one of these. They're only about €9, and have it there, and just keep the screws tight at the end. Just have it for metric anyway. And a lad comes in, I wonder would you have that bolt there? Show me that here now. Oh, no, there. And look at it. I mean, it looks very professional, you know. You have your tread pitch gauge for a couple of shillings, like, but you'll have a problem, people borrowing it. But anyway, that's the thing. So that's the metric. Now, to explain the metric fine, metric coarse, and then there's metric super fine. So you go by the tread gap. That's one. I meant to tell you that there's 1.5. I'll just show it to you on this. No, it's not coming up, folks. Well, you can see that, but I can read it there myself. 1.5 millimeter. So you don't go. You go by the top of the tread and the distance between the treads for metric. So you have metric ones, and it's kind of the thing of the future, I have to say. But now there's a thing that to say about metric treads. Now, I'm going to use an imperial because I have no big one here, but here's a metric thread. You can actually work out the drill you need by subtracting the pitch from the pitch from the diameter. So if the pitch is 10 by 1.5, what's this now? This goes. Yeah, no, that's if you're making a nut, if you're drilling a hole for it, you take away 1.5 from 10, and so you need an 8.5 drill to drill the hole to tap it. So if you're drilling into something. But anyway, there's tables for that online, no problem. You'll get the table. And most of the outlets will have, now Oxyark and Dundalk have them, they'll have the appropriate tread for you. If you're ever travelling to any of these places, have your homework done. Don't be standing there wondering what you want. Bring your things with you. But you'll get scales online. What's the recommended drill? And we all have to go to garden or farm centres and buy the nearest metric. They're not the best. You really want the proper drill. If the drill recommended is 5.6, well, then you should have 5.6. If you use 5.5, you'll get away with it. But for tapping a hole now, No, so that's it. So have I said everything there on that? I've shown you the tread pitch gauge. It's just 13 minutes, an ideal video. We'll go over them again. BA, British Association, sort of obsolete for clockwork, horology, is it? And model engineering and other fine stuff like old gramophones, like lots of things are used that tread. And it's very important to be aware of it. Now, if it doesn't fit this one, it's some of the others. BSWIT, BSW, BSF, all designated in teeth per inch. Now, the BA is not teeth per inch. The BA, if it's a 4BA, it has a designated tread. There's no such thing as teeth per inch. It says a designated tread. Whereas if it's BSW, it has a TPI. If it's BSF, it has a TPI. If it's unified, it has TPI. The BSWIT is 55 degrees. The BSF is 55 degrees. The unified, the American, is 60 degrees. I'm nearly sure, here it's on this gauge, the metric is 60. It is 60. It's here, 60. So metric then is, it's really, there's really no such thing as metric coarse or metric fine, although we use it. There's metric by a particular distance between the thread in millimeters. So that's it. Have I explained that fairly good? I think I have. Right, folks, that'll help. I know maybe only 1 in 600 is going to look at this video, and that's all right. Sure, if you want to stay that way, that's okay. It was a great pity to start off your career in a place and not know the basics. God, if I was doing that, I'd have another top of me tongue. All the old boys had it, they all retired off. So we'll see you back, folks. If I left out anything, please ask me. And we'll try and find out. One of the things I never really got to grips with is the top of a bolt. You know, on top of a bolt, they write this 8.8 and JDF. That's one. If anyone wants to do a program on it, what that means, but it doesn't really matter. The leg of this bolt is made of a kind of a toughened but not hardened steel. You can cut this with a hacksaw, but it's quite tough, and it's designed so that it's upset at the top. It's not milled. If you make a bolt on the lathe, it's not as strong as the one that's put together under heat. Although I have stretched these and pulled the top off some of them. Some of them are only pressed on. There's a difference in both bolts. Some are just pressed on, and some are actually made by heat. Enough said. Good luck. Thank you very much. Comment underneath. And again, it's only for Vintage Workshop.